first dismissed as nothing more than a bad flu, COVID-19 has become a global force to be reckoned with. The virus wreaked havoc, decimating the economy, isolating people, and further changing the way that we interact with one another. 2 years ago, the Solidarity Fund was set up to help combat the spread of the virus and preserve livelihoods. And as the country marks 2 years since lockdown was first announced, the fund will now be wrapping up its operations before closing completely in September. Deputy Chair, that's Adrian Enthoven, joins me now to reflect on the organization's milestones. Adrian, thank you so much for your time and good morning to you. I suppose one would say the fund was never meant to be a long-term, organization. It was meant initially for just that rapid response rate to COVID-19. Have you achieved this?
Yes, Jamila, thank you very much. We were set up, as you say, as an independent fund to unite the country in the fight against COVID-19, to operate, with the highest governance standards and to mobilize resources in society to fight the virus and to support the national effort. So we raised around 3.8 billion rand from over 300,000 individual donors, over 3,000 companies and foundations. So incredible response from the South African public. We had over 400 volunteers and seconded staff, over 100 companies providing pro bono services. So it's what we describe as this kind of culture of radical generosity of how South Africans came together to respond to the crisis. And through this process, we've now dispersed 97% of our funds, principally in the health response, but also supporting some humanitarian efforts and a major national communication and behavioral change campaign.
So you're saying at this point, no funds will be raised, no funds or donations would be accepted from, either, ordinary South Africans or those hoping to make that impact. You are stopping this fund immediately as of course, I suppose September when you close down, or have you stopped already?
Yes, so we'll be in a wind down towards September to complete the spend of the remaining funds and to make sure that we fully account to South Africans for how every single cent has been spent. And every single cent where it came from. And during this time, the fund, as I say, will wind down. And as you say, Jamila, the purpose of this fund was to be a crisis intervention and to be this agile, rapid response vehicle. And we really feel that we've lived up to that purpose. We fulfilled the purpose that we were set out to achieve. As you say, it was never intended that this would be a long-term institutional type intervention. And we're now moving into a different phase of the virus now, and we feel that the funds have been spent down in a responsible way. Every cent is accounted for, and we have fulfilled the purpose that we were set out to achieve.
Now, what has been some of the lessons, Adrian, that you can share with us, particularly in your experience with managing this fund? The very first for South Africa in terms of COVID-19, a global pandemic, one that hadn't been anticipated. Hearing from the president last night, marking 2 years, I suppose it was just equally challenging for you as a Solidarity Fund as it was, for anyone else in the country.
Yeah, I think one of the big learnings for me and for all of us at the fund has just been how, when we come together and we bring the best capacity, capability from business, from civil society to support governments, just how much we can achieve. I think, the fund has played a really crucial role, I think, as being this kind of, agile, rapid response vehicle that we were able to move much faster than government in many critical areas, helping to catalyze the vaccine program, bringing vaccines into the country. We were the first out of the gates to procure PPE right in the early stages, and very happy to report that not a single cent went missing in that process. Everything was fully accounted for. Mobilizing a national manufacturing program to manufacture ventilators. So there was a lot that we were able to do, and I think that an institution like the fund supporting government in its effort, and we're very clear that there can only be one national health effort, and our job was to support that national health effort. But I think really a great lesson for how the private sector and civil society can work with government to achieve more.
Yeah, but also I suppose it wasn't just the response to COVID-19, Adrian, that you were faced with. Last year's July unrest in both KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. I understand there was more funding further donated to the fund to see where you can allocate the funding in terms of assistance. How was that, a blow or not for the fund, given that already the funds were meant to be allocated solely to COVID-19, and then you were hit with another blow with those July unrest last year?
Yes, and so, I mean, we felt just because we had the institutional mechanism, we obviously had built a lot of credibility and trust in the fund, and this was such an urgent and critical crisis that needed an immediate response that we felt that we couldn't ignore it. We ended up raising close to 600 million rand. 100 million of that came from donors from the Solidarity Fund who said that they would reallocate funds to what we described as a humanitarian crisis relief fund to deal with the July events. And so we set up a separate team inside the fund, and it was a separate bank account, a separate fund. So it was an entirely separate, almost like a separate division within the fund. And when we account for the funds spent at the Solidarity Fund, the work and the project supported as part of the humanitarian crisis relief fund will be accounted for completely separately.
All right, Adrian, well, I appreciate you speaking to us. And I suppose I speak even on behalf of South Africans who absolutely saw the efforts that were made by the fund. Each and every South African who also donated, laid a helping hand. I mean, I can't commend this country more for showing solidarity. So thank you so much. The Deputy Chairperson of Solidarity Fund, that's Adrian Enthoven, talking to us about, of course, the fund's plans to wind down the fund and close, of course, leading up to September. The remaining funds, as Adrian mentioned, will be further allocated to similar causes in assisting right here in the country. All right.